2022 was a lot. I feel like the phrase 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag has never felt the most appropriate as it does at this moment. The level of uncertainty, fear, and genuine exhaustion on a national and global level feels like it's only mounted since the decade began. The continuation and ramifications of the COVID-19 pandemic, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, billions of dollars in damages, displacing many in natural disasters caused by global warming, the very systemic issues of gun violence, and the overturning of Roe v. Wade, putting millions into uncertainty about the future reproductive rights of women. If you found this video and you feel just the littlest bit fucking exhausted, and maybe even helpless, it's okay. We all are. And we've needed some escapism. And I guess I start with laying out all the serious issues outright, not just as a reminder that there are things worth being aware of and, most importantly, doing our very best to improve them, but that it's okay to take time for yourself in the overwhelming world we're in to imbibe in the small joys that life offers. And, for me at least, 2022 has been a year where, even in its most exhausting moments, there's been a lot to find enjoyment out of in the many forms of art that I take part in. From a lot of different genres, 2022 has even had a few things I would consider decade-defining, as works that could predict the direction of where media goes throughout the 2020s. Same structure here as with my previous Faves video, Eye Patch Wolf style, where I lightly touch upon something I loved this year from a different form of media, and hopefully you come away with something worth checking out that you either missed, or maybe even go back to as a reminder of why you enjoyed it so much from last year. As it probably should be mentioned due to, well, life. I wasn't able to talk about everything in 2022. Things like film, TV, and a lot of the greater wrestling world were just major blind spots to me. So, as always, I'm eager to hear what you enjoyed the most in media in 2022 in the comments below, and maybe I'll go back and check it out. Thank you. But enough talk. Get cozy, grab some snacks, cause this is the Faves 2022.
I couldn't wait for you to come and clear the cupboards. But now you're gonna leave with nothing but a sign. Another evening I'll be sitting reading in between your lines, because I miss you all the time. So get away, another way to feel what you do. Want yourself to know and let yourself go. You know you do lose your self-control. There's snow under the rainbow. Turn away, another way to be where you do want yourself to go. Let yourself go. Is that so what do you wanna do? What's your point of view? There's no place. Where do you wanna go? Handshake with you. What's your point of view? I want to talk to you. I don't wanna get you from anyone to stay at your house. And I will feel like but you know how much you want me. I want to talk to you. I ain't talking you. I don't wanna know.
9 minutes. All it took was 9 minutes for YouTube filmmaker Kane Pixels to completely grip me in nerve-shredding fear in the form of his short film, The Backrooms. From the low, unsettling hum elicited by the protagonist's camera, to the psychological implementation of sickly yellows of the many rooms and walls, to generate feelings of fear and anxiety. Every little detail Pixels puts into his film on an audio-visual level deeply unsettles you as the deeper and deeper we go, the more impossible the situation appears. The concept of liminal spaces deeply fascinates me, and based upon the view count, led to an explosion of interest across the internet regarding the phenomena and lore surrounding it, but what makes Pixel's utilization of those concepts so brilliant is that it lulls you into a sense of eerie nostalgia, disarming you from the fear and wraps you in an almost serene sense of familiarity, like you've been here before, you know these locations, and yet you haven't. And that's the trap. As the more focused you are on these locations, the less you are aware of your own surroundings. After all, it isn't the fear that you are alone. It is the fear that there is something there. Kane Pixels has since continued building off of this video, further deepening the lore and intrigue of the Backrooms and continuously well-produced short films, and not even at the age of 20 at the recording of this video, there's something special here worth witnessing the more he creates. But in a vacuum, this is still a splendid piece of horror that, even as early as it came out in 2022, still stuck with me long after I saw it, and is more than willing to stick with you long after it's been seen. Everything I talk about in the description below. If you've watched my D23 video, you know how much I fancy themed locations. Be they theme parks, theme restaurants, or hotels, there's always been a charm to them that takes me back to my childhood. That is not a sentiment shared by Eddie Burback in his absolute mad lad of a video, I ate at every Rainforest Cafe in the country. This is such an insane and baffling idea for a video. Driving over 8,000 miles to visit all 18 Rainforest Cafe locations, along the way, the sheer constant stream of tacky animatronics and mediocre jungle-themed food wear heavy upon the mental and physical state of Burback, slowly despising every location the more and more he visits, juxtaposed to friend Ted Nivison, whose companion video is also worth mentioning as a great comparison piece to show the complete 180 of emotions, as Ted has the absolute time of his life as he endeavors to collect every single souvenir cup and even force Burback to stop at the world's largest pistachio for no other reason than sheer curiosity, much to the pure disdain of Burback.
You can freak out all you want.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to forgive you or myself if I don't see the largest pistachio in the world.
I can't stress enough how much I can live with that.
It's the largest pistachio
We're not
in the
going
world!
A lot of the charm of these videos comes not just from the snappy editing and humorous reactions to what each Rainforest Cafe offers with its safari fries, overly excited gorillas, and the ridiculous amount of thunderstorms, but from how Burback and Nivison play off of each other on their videos that highlights the real friendship both men share and shows the real power of what road trips can offer, as the countless miles on the road allow them to visit a lot of the country and just enjoy each other's company, despite the contrasting nature of how each man treats each other throughout their videos.
I'm going to enjoy it because it's the last one. I just want to be done with the trip. Just don't even fucking talk to me until we get there.
Well, maybe I won't!
It's easily one of the most fun videos I watched all year that really brought me back to when I was a kid visiting this restaurant, just being enamored by the atmosphere alone. Knowing me now, I'd still be impressed if I went to one again. Definitely not gonna force my girlfriend to go with me though. Never. And definitely not gonna force her to try that lava cake. And definitely not gonna make her sit next to one of the gorillas as it shakes violently and grunts at her. Not me. And Professional wrestling as a topic for analytical video essay format wouldn't be what it is today if not for the pioneering efforts of Forrest Silva, now simply known as Queen, and his early New Japan videos provided a template of which has been used, morphed, and redone into the landscape that exists now for wrestling video essays. But in recent years, his focus shifted away from mostly making videos on wrestling and more into topics like MMA and Smash Bros. Melee, but never once compromised the sheer depth of research and details he brings into each video, culminating in easily the best thing he has ever created in the form of his MMA documentary, How Kazushi Sakuraba Changed the World. What makes Queen's Sakuraba documentary so engaging is that I could care less about MMA, but the way he's able to weave a greater narrative of how combat is an integral aspect of Japan's cultural identity, as he details the origins of jiu-jitsu, the importance of pro wrestling in post-World War II Japan, the splintering of different shoot-style promotions, and the origins and growth of MMA in the world as a whole. All on top of the mystique the Gracie family brought in martial arts through their own rule set, and how Kazushi Sakuraba came to shatter it, with all the cultural significance that comes with it, all culminating in Sakuraba's legendary fight against Royce Gracie on May 1st, 2000. There's a lot I'm not doing justice here in describing the quality of Queen's work, but if you even have a passing interest in MMA, or even history in general, there is so much here worth being fascinated by, as it doubles as a great introduction to the abilities Queen has as a content creator and the special voice that he brings. Not only shown by his dedication to research and detail, but also pure passion for the topics he discusses. Okay, I know literally everyone who's watching this has probably been told by everyone who's seen it that it's great, but honestly, it's so much better than the praise it gets. I've been a huge fan of Defunctland for years now, and the sheer bar that he raises for each video he makes constantly wows me, and he really outdoes himself in his granular deep dive into who made the Disney Channel theme and his Disney Channel's theme, A History Mystery. A wholehearted work of investigative documentation, as he not just discusses the history of the Disney Channel and its different eras and the different ad bumpers used, but also talking with different composers who had the chance to write music for the Disney Channel's bumpers as they discuss the methods and styles they gave to the 4 notes that comprised of the channel's theme, along with talking to former marketing and advertising team members on their time working for the Disney Channel in an attempt to find out once and for all who officially wrote the 4 notes. All of it concludes into this really heartwarming and sincere message that had me in tears by the end, about legacy, recognition, and where about no matter how little and obscure someone's role may be in a company or greater work, still deserves the recognition and admiration as an artist, and that, long after we are gone, we still deserve to be recognized and celebrated for what joy we bring. It's not just my favorite YouTube video of the year, it's easily the best video Kevin Perjurer of Defunctland has created. Hell, it's more than that. He may never watch this or even know who I am, but know that much like the person who wrote the theme, he deserves all the recognition and love that goes into what he has given to this platform. And it's that same hope I instill into anyone who creates for a living. If you ever considered what you do for a larger company or what little creative project you had as meaningless or insignificant, this is absolutely the video to watch to make you proud of what you do and to continue doing it. Based on the albums I listened to this year, punk rock had an excellent 2023. Between the meat and potatoes Aussie excellence of the Chats Get Fucked, which has the energy and brevity of a Wire's Pink Flag or Early Descendants album, the colorful cast of Otoboke Beaver's Super Champon, which commits to the incredible task of having more songs than their debut album, but somehow shorter, being barely over 20 minutes. An astute ear will notice that I used their song Pardon as the intro track to my Faves Wrestling 2022 video, but nothing matched the sheer ferocity and biting social commentary of hardcore punk outfit Soul Glow with their 4th studio album, Diaspora Problems. Even as a fan of the genre, listening to this album made me stop and go, my god, what have I been missing in this scene? As the sheer intensity of the instrument playing and machine gun vocals would make bands like Suicidal Tendencies and Minor Threat shed tears. But as incredibly intense as the instrumentation is, the lyrics are worth diving into as well, as touching on topical issues like mental health and Thumbsucker, race and jump or get jumped by the future, materialism and driponomics, and the all too far relatable feelings of being at a generational dead end. As vocalist Pierce Jordan screams, we can't bear to tell them their efforts were consumed in fire. And one of my favorite tracks, Coming Correct, is cheaper. But literally every track here is just bursting with furious energy that refuses to let up even once, and is hands down the punk album of the year. I have despised country music for most of my life, mainly down to how generic the lyrical content boils down to, and even growing up in the shadow of 9/11, the way the genre degraded itself into obnoxious patriotism, despite how older artists in the genre were often critical of the country. So you're gonna have to excuse me when I went in with pretty low expectations going into Orville Peck's Bronco, and was honestly blown away. What's really fascinating here is the sheer robust range of Peck's vocals that carry his ballads like City of Gold, Hexy Mountains, and Kalahari Down into real heartfelt and engaging listens, generating an almost cinematic quality eliciting images of a lonesome cowboy riding through the open plains. But as he launches into more rocking tracks like Daytona Sand, Lafayette, and the title track Bronco is where we really see Peck's power as a vocalist in his croon that evokes the energy of an Elvis Presley that sears through the production. I can't guarantee that you'll get the same enjoyment as I did depending on your tolerance towards country, but Peck himself, coming from a queer perspective that's not seen from the genre, while also being loyal to its ethos, makes it genuinely unique and fresh, that it'll make you think differently. And he's more than earned a loyal fan from me after this. Neo-pagan folk punk. That's honestly the best descriptor I could ever give Brooklyn neofolk group Cult of Youth's 5th studio album, With Open Arms. They call themselves neofolk, but that's honestly burying the sheer scope of genre and styles that are being experimented and utilized here on this album. Tracks like Blameless, Flowers of Essence, and Barking Without Dogs ensnare the listener in a fantastical ritualistic soundscape that highlights the wondrous instrumentation and vocalization that I cannot recommend more grabbing the best pair of headphones you can, and just letting the myriad of percussion, strings, and vocal deliveries that highlight the experimentation of industrial and psychedelia wash over you. But more entry-level tracks like Green Cross and Final Kingdom is where a lot of the punk influence shines through, where the freneticism of instruments and snarling bark of Sean Regan's vocals evoke a raw punk energy that feels like going full gallop on Roach in The Witcher or Torrent in Elden Ring on your way to an intense battle. I really can't say enough good things, because even after 5 full listens to this album, I don't think I've come close to picking apart the sheer depth of the songwriting and amount of sounds being used. I've heard no one talk about this album, and honestly, I only found out about it after music YouTuber WhiteXHim talked about it on his Albums of the Year video. Whether you like folk, punk, psychedelia, if you're willing to go out of your own musical comfort zone to try something genuinely fresh and unique, there's undoubtedly something here to be blown away by. Going a little more than an hour, but in every second of this album, there's a unique sound or clever use of an instrument that continues to broaden the confounding scope of the soundscape being created. Hands down, my album of the year. Stop motion animation has always been an art form that never fails to fascinate me. Even at a young age, with the works of Aardman to Wes Anderson's fascinating level of detail in Fantastic Mr. Fox and Isle of Dogs, in 2022, it felt like the genre really went through a bit of a renaissance. From the horror anthology of The House, to Jordan Peele and Henry Selick's Wendell and Wild, and even Guillermo del Toro dipping his toes into the genre with Pinocchio, that really shocked me with the sheer level of emotion that each facial animation and mannerism and movement brings to its characters. But I am an absolute sicko, so let's talk about Mad God. Yep. A putrid, bleeding, oozing, pain, tortured nightmare of a film that, even at 90 minutes, is some of the most uncompromising animation I've ever seen committed to screen, with one scene in particular, I am very confident I cannot show on YouTube, but if you know what I'm talking about, is so uncomfortable in the way the scene manipulates cringeworthy sounds and gruesome visuals that I've probably scared away anyone who's still listening. But I loved every second, if nothing else than the sheer artistry and meticulous attention to detail that emanates from Mad God. If you know the backstory of this film, then you know just how time-consuming each movement and mannerism was, and how it really took a lot of time and passion to get this made, as Tippett has been crafting this abominable spectacle for 3 decades. There was no way a big production company was ever going to fund this, and probably shouldn't have seen the light of day, with how esoteric and lacking of good grace for a general audience it is, but like I said, I'm a huge sicko, so I'm glad it did. Not for the faint of heart, if I haven't made that clear yet, but if you can stomach it, it's fucking incredible. Matt Reeves' The Batman is one of my favorite films of the year, and most of what made it so engaging to me was its ability to make Gotham itself feel like a character. People don't so much as live in Gotham as much as they wear it. They get weighed down by the immeasurable misery and corruption that emanates from it. But what the Batman asks of its audience is that Gotham, much like every city, no matter how grim and desolate our environments may be, there is worth in doing our best to improve and make it better to live in, as we are its greatest savior. This type of world building is also present in Studio Trigger's Cyberpunk Edgerunners, but where Gotham has the capacity to be saved, Night City is utterly fucked. The corruption runs so deep that the main antagonist is just a pawn in a much bigger game of corporate chess to benefit themselves at the expense of literally all who inhabit it. And this hopelessness is felt in all the characters trying so desperately to break that glass ceiling that the thought of one more piece of chrome, one more upgrade, one more score is going to save them, only for reality to plummet them straight to earth. But between that heartbreak is easily some of the most tightly paced, gorgeously gory and endearingly written characters Studio Trigger has had in years. Also, this series is fucking gorgeous. Like, I'm not the first person to state that every other scene of this is a desktop wallpaper emporium, but I sure won't be the last. I love it when a series like this reminds me of why I fell in love with anime to begin with the kind of character development, engaging visuals, and blistering action sequences that exist in some of my favorites from the genre, and most importantly, has introduced a plethora of new fans in its wake, not just for anime itself, but for the actual game that it adapts, which, hey, fair play Studio Trigger and CD Projekt Red, fair play. Last year, in the middle of the pandemic, I didn't so much as read, as much as I absorbed Tatsuki Fujimoto's Chainsaw Man. Fujimoto's tale of a boy and his dog hunting devils to pay off his debt to the Yakuza, till he literally has that dog in him to become the titular hero, had me invested every chapter as the monstrosities Denji faced and friendships built, developed to become a series that really won me over as something genuinely special, where the series' moments of pure violent chaos were only matched and even exceeded by Fujimoto's particular usage of panel work to make the quiet moments speak just as loudly. So much so that once the initial teaser trailer for the anime dropped, my mind raced, wondering how Studio Mappa would be able to recreate the sheer insanity and serene silence that made the manga so special to its fans. It really felt like something special coming from a team that really cared about Fujimoto's source material, and the work that Studio Mappa puts into Chainsaw Man is nothing but jaw-dropping. The studio's ability to put into motion all the blistering action and character-specific mannerisms that Fujimoto only hinted at made every single week must-watch TV for me. From chaotic opening to each and every unique and gorgeous ending as Mappa brings to life manga iconic moments of the bat and katana fights, the endless nightmare of the Eternity Devil arc, and even specific but essential mannerisms and characters, from the mysterious but sensual allure of Makima, the pure restless gremlin energy of Power, and even dedicating entire minutes of an episode to show the sadness of Aki's personal moments of quiet. As Studio Mappa shows every moment being the only peace he is allowed between hunting devils, as well as being a stopgap in his pursuit of the gun devil. The studio didn't even need to do that, but it's moments like that that shows that Mappa really cares about these characters and are more than willing to flesh them out in meaningful ways outside of the manga. The characters of Chainsaw Man are the lifeblood of this series, and it really mattered that Mappa gave them the nuances and care that made fans of this series love them so much, and so far, they've been adapted excellently. My elation of this series' existence has been extensively documented. Hell, my user handle on Twitter was Pochita Merchant for most of the fall last year. I mean, just look at him, he's perfect, and I will not be taking questions. Anyway, I really can't get over how much joy this series brought me. Up there with series like The Mandalorian as that bit of comfort television that was what my week revolved around. And the only reason I'm really holding back my appreciation here is because I'd like to make my own video on it in the future, but just know I heavily recommend reading the manga leading up to Season 2 because knowing what comes next, oh boy, Season 2 is going to be something else. 2022 was a sublime year for Ninja Turtle fans. From the shockingly great TMNT The Last Ronin comic that saw comic creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird return to help write, to the eye pornography of Rise of the TMNT, the movie, and then there's TMNT Shredder's Revenge. An absolute delight as my go-to, uh-oh, I got COVID and I need something to distract me from my own thoughts in a small room game. All the four turtles are fun to play as with their own specific stats, with Raph having the most power, Mikey having the best speed, Donatello has the best range, and Leonardo being a mix of all the other turtles. Also, you got April O'Neil, Casey Jones, and Splinter to play as. The real selling factor here is the sheer personality brimming from every level as the colors pop with the cartoon's vibrancy. There's great enemy variety, the animations look great. If you're a major fan of the Turtles in general, there's some really fun deep cuts in the boss fights and NPC interactions, and T-Lopes fucking snaps on the soundtrack. Much like his previous OST work with Sonic Mania, he has no business going this hard on his tracks, not to mention guest artists like Megaran and, I shit you not, Raekwon and Ghostface Killa of the Wu-Tang Clan just fit perfectly to hype you up to kick some shell. It might not be reinventing the beat-em-up genre the way something like Streets of Rage 4 did, but that's not what this game is trying to do at all. It's just a simple, straightforward good time that plays so well that it begs you to bond with your friends over it while playing it on the couch over a slice of pizza and some drinks as you scream at the top of your lungs, "Cowabunga!" Okay, Bayonetta 3 is flawed, in the very profound ways Platinum games are. The kaiju moments are cool at first, but are really slow and uninteresting combat-wise. The enemies you have to fight have terribly uninspired designs. Viola is just not fun to play as, and that ending sucks. But with all that said, I cannot lie to myself about the sheer excessive joy this game gave me. I love the Demon Slave system with all the different demons you can summon that allows you a variety of moves and abilities to unlock and play with. The combat as Bayonetta is just as tight and as exciting as previous titles. There are some boss fights that put me in scenarios where my jaw dropped and I howled in jubilation over what the game was having me do. It's not my favorite Bayonetta game and probably places last if I'm ranking all the games, but saying Bayonetta 3 is the weakest of the series is like saying Toy Story 3 is the weakest of the first 3 Toy Story films. Shit still rocks, and I'm gonna still be grinding platinum trophies to get as much playtime as I can. Just don't make me talk about that ending. I've been playing video games for 20 years. From my nascent years of saving the galaxy by fending off the forces of Andross in Star Fox 64, racing the endless vibrant cosmos of Rainbow Road and Mario Kart 64, to maining Nightmare and Taki in Soul Calibur, to building kill streaks in Modern Warfare, and the many brawls I had after class, and in clubs in college with my friends playing Super Smash Bros. The question of what is your all-time favorite video game has always been one that has eluded me as my tastes and preferences have always changed. And the more I think about that question, the more I realize that it's harder for me to enjoy video games as much as I used to. Not that great games aren't being made anymore, but be it the hobby has become more expensive, or that games more often than not come out completely unfinished or broken, or simply that the older I get, the less time I have for them. Whatever it is, it's hard to feel the magic for what games used to give me years and years ago. Elden Ring has become the answer to that question. Yes, I know, I made a near 40-minute video detailing why you should play Elden Ring, but permit me the chance to tell you what Elden Ring meant to me. Never a second passed where I wasn't in awe of the sheer scope of the lands between. Never a second passed where the enemies didn't fill me with dread and wonder. Never a second passed where the bosses didn't fill me with adrenaline-pumping excitement, furious rage, and then pure elation when I beat them. Margit, Godric, Renala, Radon, Melania, Godfrey, Malekith all left marks on me that represent the best qualities of what makes From Software games unlike anything in the industry. All the NPCs meant something to me, whether it was in their design or their partnership and combat that endeared me to them. And even when the game frustrated me or had to constantly have me repeat a fight over and over again, I was able to just go somewhere else and be surprised by something new to change the game to keep it fresh and engaging. I hate going into hyperbole when talking about any form of art, because I don't want to give people false expectations, but when I think about gaming in the 2020s and what defined it from where it was to where it is now, Elden Ring will stand as a superlative standard setter. From Software didn't just make the best game of 2022, they've crafted their masterpiece, one that shows the sheer passion and hard work of a team that deserves all the praise for everything they've sacrificed and given, and one that everyone involved should be more than proud of. Okay, so here's the part of the video where half of you are about to leave and the other half are finally going to pay attention. It's the wrestling section of the video. But first, let's take a quick break and let's talk about... Hey babe, I heard you liked Sonic.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Do you want to talk about it?
Oh, hell yeah, let's go!
Hello, I'm Harmony, aka Puzzle Dorka. As you may or may not know, I'm Andos' girlfriend, and a huge fan of Sonic. And Andos so graciously asked if I wanted to be a part of this video, and I never turned down an opportunity to talk about Sonic. So let's do this. Sonic. What was the butt of any joke on the internet had a pretty amazing year in 2022. As someone whose first video game was Sonic 3D Blast for the Genesis, and has been a part of the Sonic fandom for nearly 20 years, I've seen it all. The good, the bad, and the very ugly. And it's so refreshing to finally talk to people about Sonic, without them bringing up the game-breaking glitches or the early DeviantArt cringe. You all know what I mean. Within 2022, there were 4 significant events that happened regarding the Blue Hedgehog. Starting off with the release of the Sonic 2 movie in April, which grossed $402.7 million worldwide, becoming the highest grossing video game film in the United States. While slow at times when Sonic and his friends aren't on the screen, get it? Slow when he's not, never mind. The movie overall is a love letter to the Sonic fanbase. I was so giddy watching and pointing out all of the Easter eggs throughout the movie. I was probably really annoying. And that post-credit scene, the entire movie theater screamed in joy and excitement when we all saw what Sonic 3 was going to be about. Next was the release of Sonic Origins, a re-release compilation of the 4 classic games Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic CD, and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. This is something that the fanbase has been wanting for many years, and while not completely flawless, it's still a fun series of games to pick up and play every so often. My second ever video game was Sonic 3 and Knuckles, so having the satisfaction of beating that game with all of the Chaos Emeralds and the Super Emeralds simply by doing the special stages over and over using coins until I finally completed them was really nice. Also, I actually didn't mind the music they used for Carnival Night, Ice Cap, and the launch base, but it did throw me off the first time hearing it. After a few months of teasers, footage, and even an animated prologue was the release of Sonic Frontiers, Sega's answer to the ever-popular and favorite open-world concept in gaming. And oh my gosh, this is so much fun to play. This game reminds me why I love Sonic, and why I love all of his silly friends, and why I should be invested in this story. With IDW Sonic writer Ian Flynn joining the crew to help write the story, you can tell we're on the path to a more serious tone to how Sonic and his friends are written, which I think everyone can agree is the right way to go. It's not a perfect game by any means. The 2D sections control like maple syrup, but it's much better than what we've been given the past 10 years from Sega. But can we talk about the soundtrack? Because goddamn. Granted, Sonic OSTs never miss, but you can't deny that Undefeatable hits differently as soon as you become Super Sonic to fight that first boss. I literally turned to Andos and said, "Do you hear this fucking music? This is so hype." A feeling that I haven't felt since the adventure games. And that's saying something. And finally, a month after Frontiers, we got Sonic Prime on Netflix. A super fun animated series about exploring multiverses. Again, the characters are well written and the animation is so expressive and fun to watch. And of course, it left off on a cliffhanger. So I'm even more excited about season 2. But honestly, I'm just glad my girl Rouge finally gets some representation. It's been too damn long. So there you have it, a Cliff Notes version of the year Sonic had in 2022. Sonic may have been the center of it all, but we all know it's actually been the year of Knuckles, the best character in the series. And that is not up for debate. By the way, if you love Sonic as much as I do and want to support a small business, I sell Sonic-related stickers, acrylic charms, and art prints on my Etsy shop, Puzzled Orca. And if you want to talk more about Sonic with me, feel free to follow me on Twitter at puzzled_orca. Now back to Andos, who will now gush over wrestling, like the mark that he is.
Thank you, babe. I love you. Hey, remember in my last Faves video when I expressed my worries about DDT Pro sliding into the new Epic territory with Tetsuya Endo as champion, taking my enjoyment of the company with it? Yeah, all those worries evaporated into thin air the moment I laid eyes on Kazusada Higuchi. Kazusada Higuchi was the breath of fresh air in Japanese wrestling that reminded me what makes this style of wrestling so incredible to me. Not only does he have the presence and aura of a main event champion, carrying himself as the most important competitor in one of the most unique companies in Japanese pro wrestling, in trying to understand what makes Higuchi so great to the uninitiated, he very much so has the qualities that make the likes of Walter/Gunther in the WWE so great. Large and imposing, where the moment he comes out, you know he has an aura that is befitting of a man of his stature, profoundly heavy-handed with chops that can cave your chest in, best exemplified in his matches against Hideki Okitani, Yukio Sakaguchi, and Yuji Hino. But above all that, Higuchi has moments where he can be extremely giving, whether that's the dedicated hand-selling in his match with Shinya Aoki, or bringing out the best and promising young star in Yuki Ueno, and taking him to his limits in their KOD title match at DDT Nevermind. Also, Higuchi was a really fun tag wrestler, tagging with the members of his stable Haramao in mostly tight 20 or so minute tag bangers, including holding the promotion's tag titles with Haramao stablemate Naomi Yoshimura. Even if his first half of 2022 wasn't the most compelling or noteworthy, the moment he is given the opportunity in the King of DDT tournament to finally win the KOD title and everything after, Higuchi refuses to miss. My favorite wrestler in Japan all year. Long live Big Gooch. Long may he reign. Despite whatever label has been put on me as your friendly neighborhood FTR stan, I honestly can't confidently say that FTR is the tag team of the year the way I did earlier when I dropped my previous Faves videos. They aren't as consistent as I hoped they would be given how little they have been booked as defending champions, and as good as the match is, I don't love their match against Aussie Open at Royal Quest the way most people do. But I mean, come on. They're just so damn good. To the point that whatever criticisms I may have, they just remained undeniable, despite whatever competition they might have had in the category of Best Tag Team of 2022. When FTR was on in 2022, goddamn, were they every bit as good as people say they are, and I know them to be. Having excellent TV tags against Mox and Punk and the Young Bucks, putting over hot young teams in victory and defeat against the Acclaimed, Aussie Open and Gun Club, and being great babyfaces in peril against the monstrous United Empire team of Jeff Cobb and Great-O-Khan. All of that is good and fine, but I don't think this conversation would be as strong if it wasn't for the sheer magic they had with the Briscoes in their generation-defining tag trilogy for the Ring of Honor tag team titles. Sure, Ring of Honor feels like an empty husk of a company that many in this community have bemoaned and how lifeless and meaningless it currently is, but in a vacuum, their tag trilogy made those titles feel like the most important in all of wrestling whenever they met in the ring. The sheer limits both men brought each other to in every single one of their encounters were some of the most wince-inducing and emotionally exhausting I've ever been watching wrestling in a very long time. And that alone in my heart makes FTR the tag team of the year. It remains to be seen whether 2023 will be as kind to them as this year was, given that Dax has confirmed that they're going to be taking a break for the first quarter of 2023, with their future in wrestling being currently undecided. But one thing is for sure, whenever the 7-star team hit the ring in Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, you're gonna get top guy quality. What 1989 was to Ric Flair, what 2005 was to Samoa Joe, 2022 is for Jon Moxley. To the point where it isn't even a question of was Jon Moxley a great wrestler in 2022, it's a matter of did Jon Moxley cement himself as an all-time great wrestler in 2022? The man just refused to stop himself in 2022. Literally, the moment the year began for him, he remained incredibly consistent with nearly everyone he shared a ring with. Be it holding his own against some of the greatest names in the industry like Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, and Hiroshi Tanahashi, to getting the absolute best out of up-and-comers like Daniel Garcia, Wheeler Yuta, and Konosuke Takeshita, even being a force on the independent scene in various promotions, having great matches against the likes of Mike Bailey, Tony Deppen, and an absolute bloodbath against Biff Busick at Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, to even as a member of the Blackpool Combat Club in his variety of tag and six-man tag matches with Bryan Danielson, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta were always a highlight of every episode of AEW Dynamite and AEW Rampage. I literally don't have anything else to add that hasn't already been said. Normally I'm a bigger fan of quality over quantity, but when someone like Jon Moxley has a match volume this high and a hit ratio this consistent, it really can't be helped how undeniable Mox is. Whether that's holding it down as the interim world champion following CM Punk's injury, or having to carry the company through its post-All-Out landscape when morale and interest in the company was at an all-time low. Concluding by giving MJF his moment by dropping the title to him and finally seeing MJF as AEW's top heel champion. At that point, literally anyone would just take it easy, call it a year, and maybe go on vacation to fish. Nope. He closes 2022 by rallying the Blackpool Combat Club around him, making it stronger than ever, and reigniting his feud with Hangman Page, making it the most personal feud in the company. Wild schedule, wild matches, wild thing. And in 2022, no single wrestler made my heart sing. What an absolute breath of fresh air this match is. Everything about this encounter is big. Not just from the size of both men or the bombs thrown or even the bumps taken, but in terms of stakes and what this match means to both men. As much as Higuchi has proven himself as a top guy, he isn't really the top guy. That honor goes to Konosuke Takeshita. Takeshita has been DDT's top babyface for years, holding a variety of titles, including holding the KOD Championship a record 5 times. And during the summer, he went on an excursion, working with promotions like AEW, sharpening his skills against the best in America, and when he came back to DDT, it wasn't just that Takeshita was as good as he had ever been, he was even better. And what better way to prove that than return to his home company, to be its champion once again, and being the company's representative once he goes back to America. This was only Higuchi's second title defense, but means the most to Higuchi as to not just prove that he can beat Takeshita, but that he deserves to be respected in the eyes of the company and fans as a true ace champion. And what's the best way to do that than to beat its golden boy? Most Japanese main event title matches have a formula with opening mat work that translates to a feeling out process that builds and builds into bigger spots and crescendoing into a blistering finishing stretch that, more often than not, goes 30 to 40 minutes. Absolutely not here. This match just moves and moves with an urgency, tightness, and physicality that had me biting on every little moment till the very end. Yes, that ring post bump is just as hard to watch on the 5th rewatch of this match as it was the first time I saw it, but man, seeing Higuchi no-sell it as he flips a switch in real time to headbutt him back was one of the moments of the year for me. The best aspect of this match is that as the one-upsmanship of this match gets more and more violent and the blows landed and bombs dropped get more and more wince-inducing, you kind of just lose yourself, and what feels much longer than what it is really is actually shorter than you expect, going less than 19 minutes, but is able to pack in so much to make it feel as important and engaging as if it were to go twice its length. The finishing stretch in particular being one of my favorite of the year, as both men just exhaust each other with their best offense, only for Higuchi to just collapse on Takeshita, and Takeshita so exhausted that he can't even muster a defiant kickout. This match is a blistering war of attrition that not only sees Japanese pro wrestling's best qualities displayed in a tight and urgent manner, but most importantly, sees Kazusada Higuchi firmly plant his flag as DDT's ace. I don't inherently believe that unconventionality equals good, or that media that is esoteric in nature is inherently a sign of deep artistic expression. Hell, one of my favorite films of the year was Phil Tippett's Mad God, something most general audiences would despise, especially in pro wrestling, where expectations of what a title match should be is something that is hotly controversial depending on what you get out of a match of this caliber. You are not wrong for hating this match or thinking it as a wasted fart of an angle to swerve your audience. In fact, most people are going to choose the all-out match as the better encounter, and honestly, you're right. It's a violent brawl in front of a hot Chicago crowd that affirms all the qualities of what you would expect from the absolute best of Jon Moxley and CM Punk. But I just can't stop thinking about how special this was. I can't stop thinking about how audacious of an idea this was. There's something real and uncomfortable and sad about this match that I just don't feel in a lot of world title matches. In its brief 3 minutes, the hubris of a cocky and overzealous champion gets horrifically exposed and is snuffed out against an undeniable juggernaut. But what I love so much about this match is just how defiant it is in the expectation of what modern world title matches should be that sometimes mirror professional sports, or the unfortunate reality of how best laid plans come to die. Whether that's Conor McGregor breaking his leg with seconds remaining in the first round in his fight against Dustin Poirier in the UFC, or just recently, an NFC North leading Minnesota Vikings getting completely shut out by nearly 30 points by one of the division's worst teams in the Green Bay Packers. It's not fair, but this happens. That's reality. You can have the best training, the most confidence, and the best planned out strategies, but sometimes none of that really matters when tragedy strikes, and seeing that exist in something as meticulously planned out and structured as professional wrestling can let us breathe in deeply emotional stories where we can sympathize with how we deal with loss and heartbreak, or vindication and triumph in seeing someone you believed in so much as being champion in Jon Moxley finally cement himself as AEW's ace. Jon Moxley versus CM Punk on Dynamite teaches us that sometimes life is unfair, but how we deal with life's unfairness is what truly defines us. Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary buds, shit's about to hit the fan. Of course I have to talk about this match. What made you think I wasn't going to talk about this match? Literally, from the white uniforms of the Jericho Appreciation Society to the badass group intro of the Blackpool Combat Club, Eddie Ortiz and Santana, you knew this was going to pop off from the word go. What a gleeful exercise in violent maximalism. The best way to describe this match is visual cacophony. So much is happening so often, so fast, and in so many places that you honestly worry that you're gonna miss something insane happening in some other part of the arena. Whether that's Eddie Kingston fighting Matt Menard and later Daniel Garcia, up into the concession and merch stands and further bowels of the arena, to Mox unhooking the turnbuckles to use as weapons, or even Santana and Ortiz hitting stereo splashes through tables. It's all just a spectacle to behold. But in terms of visual iconography in pro wrestling in 2022, nothing comes close to the blood and ketchup-drenched Eddie Kingston shambling to the ring with a gas canister, looking to light Chris Jericho on fire, actualizing his promise of putting Chris Jericho in the ground. At this point, I should probably point out that Kingston is the MVP here, being able to take just as much as he dishes out, and being eternal to his character of always being in his own way. Right when victory is in his grasp, his own emotions of Jericho cost him not only his chance at revenge, but also the victory of his teammates. It's that creativity and dedication to one's own character that makes Kingston one of the most compelling talents in all of AEW. Danielson is also magic near the end, showing that iconic fire and passion that made him such a beloved babyface all those years ago as he desperately fights against the Jericho Appreciation Society's numbers game. But it's not enough. Jericho and Hager are able to double team him into a submission that causes him to pass out and give the Jericho Appreciation Society the win in the first ever Anarchy in the Arena match. Now look, you've seen this match, you know the spots, you're just hearing this just to have its praises repeated to you, and if you still haven't seen it, what are you doing? Rectify that immediately. Had this been any other year, I would have been no question convinced that this was my match of the year, but That just speaks to the sheer quality of what the in-ring competition was in 2022 and what my next two picks offer, but hey, AEW Match of the Year isn't bad at all. To really talk about what this match means to me, I think I need to talk a little bit about myself. Much to my chagrin, making videos for YouTube is not my day job. I work a boring, regular first shift retail job. A job in which it's not uncommon for me to get upwards of 20,000 to 25,000 steps a day the way I run around to grab items and ship them for customers. And ever since I moved in with my girlfriend in the fall of 2022, I've been working twice as hard to help pay for our side of the apartment. I wanted to prove that I could be respected and admired through my hard work so that I could move up. That obviously didn't happen, as many who live under capitalism know, but that didn't stop me. Sometimes I don't know when to stop, and how to not push myself beyond what I can do until one day I came home from work and I just collapsed from exhaustion. I felt nothing, and when my girlfriend saw how exhausted I was, she simply laid there with me and said, "You are enough. I love you." This is what this match is to me. El Desperado vs. Jun Kasai is long, it's grueling, and there is a mountain that needs to be climbed from Desperado, and it's one that he can't help himself but to see the peak of, even if it means sacrificing his own well-being. In the greater context, even if this is technically his show and the card is filled with his stablemates, the crowd is not here for Despi, they're there for Jun Kasai. This is not his match, this is Jun Kasai's match, but Despi knows this. After all, Kasai is Despi's hero, and to prove that he can be respected in the eyes of his hero and his fans, and more importantly to himself, he will meet him on Kasai's turf. For nearly 30 agonizing minutes, Kasai rips and tears and batters Despi's very flesh with assorted blades and barbed wire, tearing at his mask as blood pours over the whites of Despi's eyes and makeup. Kasai isn't so much as a deathmatch wrestler in Japan, as much as he is a deathmatch institution. And he shows every bit of it here as he relishes in the violence he commits, and to illustrate how hardened and in his element Kasai is, the more and more dangerous the weapons he delivers are. It's apparent he's having a blast here, and it feels less like a war and more of a playground for Kasai as he hits Despi with everything here. Guitar shots, chairs, and even hitting a sunset flip powerbomb onto a board of cut-up beer cans. But Desperado persists. There's something so uplifting about seeing someone go up against an institution, fearless and unwavering, that as the more and more Despi kicks out of and survives, it endears you to see him win. Despi's selling here is excellent, taking every bit of punishment with a sense of urgency as every fiber of his very being tells him to get up. He's not fighting for anything less than his very life against the overwhelming Kasai. There is a madness to this match. A madness that far extends beyond the limits of competition and into the heart of a man who will gladly welcome death if it means he gets the respect he deserves. But this mentality is a siren song. One to any wrestler who chooses to be great, to be admired, to be undeniable, and in an industry that is known to devour its own to build itself, it can be a tragic mindset, and one that can expose the ugliest side of this art form. Even in life, how often do we needlessly push for the things greater than what we are, so we can be seen, so we can be admired, but it means nothing if it takes us with it. Nothing is worth it if you're not here. Sometimes we just want to be told we're enough, that we're loved. That is what makes this match so special to me. It's what makes Kasai's post-match advice to Desperado so hard-hitting, not just in the world of wrestling, but to anyone who yearns to be great, to be seen. There is no need to welcome death. Kasai respected Desperado the moment he came into the ring, because knowing the person across from you is going to take care of you, make you better, and be given a match that they can be proud of, is the greatest respect any wrestler can truly get. In the macro of this match, it's the futility of fatalism and the affirmation of life itself. Sometimes hearing that you matter is the most freeing thing in the world. Jun Kasai versus El Desperado is one of my favorite matches of 2022, not just because it's a hard-hitting, gruesome, and bloody match, but because it's a match that felt the most like 2020 itself, and a match that taught me life's greatest message when I needed it the very most. A match that shows all the nastiness and uncomfortability of the world, and while pushing yourself to meet those challenges is admirable, it's a desire that should never take you away from it. There will always be people who need you, who rely on you, who respect you, and who most importantly, love you. Once you understand that, you'll be even stronger. I went back and forth, and flipped and flopped between my top 2 matches of the year here. Part of why this video took so long for me to make was knowing how difficult I knew choosing what my favorite matches of 2022 would be. Number 1, I highly recommend listening to Dax Harwood talk about this match in the 2nd episode of his podcast series, as he deeply analyzes the psychology and pain he and the other competitors went through to make this his personal masterpiece. What I say here I doubt will do justice to what he says, so definitely go out of your way to listen to it, link in the description below. And second, I'll be honest, the passing of Jay Briscoe. It's hard to talk about this match and, by extension, this trilogy, and not immediately think of his role and how much it meant to this match's legacy and the lengths Jay went to make this all the more intense. Committing to the best tag team match and trilogy of matches in recent memory, and knowing this was his penultimate match. I think at the very least, I owe it to him and his memory. So then, allow me to give my full feelings on why I think FTR vs. the Briscoes double dog collar match is the best match of 2022. Before I get into the real meat of this match, I really want to talk about this match's unsung third tag team, Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni. They are magical as commentators here. Everything they say puts over how worrisome and dangerous such a stipulation is, and how genuinely uncomfortable they are having to commentate over it. Coleman, in particular, is wholehearted in his selling of the sheer depravity, as he makes comments about the blood as it lands on his notes, and how he can smell the iron due to the amount of blood let, to even not knowing if Mark Briscoe is even alive after Cash uses the chain to pull him onto a pile of chairs. And the very fear in his voice over how much he doesn't care about the now, he's worried about each man's tomorrow, where even Riccaboni chimes in about how he worries for each man's family, and how each man should think about what they themselves are putting their family through by even doing this. It's that extra layer of pure worry and fear that highlights just the limits each man is willing to go to prove that each is the best. And that dedication to weave a story so vocally, I can close my eyes and just listen to this match and I still feel it. Easily one of, if not the best commentary teams out there. But the actual match itself. Mechanically, everything is layered with such a palpable malice as each man bloodies the other with a spite that comes as a natural progression to just how both men hate each other, and the limits, both physically and verbally, both teams have brought themselves to. In particular, if it looks like Jay Briscoe was really punching Dax into a bloody pulp with that chain, that's because he is. In Dax's podcast, he states about how this match needed that level of heat to put over the severity of the chain as...
I told Jay in the back, and I told all the guys, that I wanted to get busted open by the chain because I wanted the chain. I wanted
the chain. Tell him that. Did you tell him that?
Yes. I told him I wanted to get busted open by the chain because I wanted the chain. I didn't want there to be a big elaborate spot to get me busted open. But I wanted the chain to be the reason that I bled. You know what I mean? Again, we got to put as much danger on the chain as we possibly can because that's the gimmick of the match.
The chain itself is masterfully implemented, as every vicious spot from being wrapped around an appendage to a whip to choking, and even utilized as extra leverage to launch someone, are what causes the most damage and what directly or indirectly busts open each member. Sure, chairs are used as weapons, but they never overindulge in using them, and the urgency and panic in the way they try to escape moves onto them puts the chairs over just as dangerously. But ultimately, it's the commitment to make the chain as dangerous as possible that makes the violence so compelling. No moment more indicative of that than when the match clicks into a genuinely uncomfortable gear as referee Mike Posey blades after being pulled into a chain shot from Dax. From that moment, there's this little voice at the back of your head that tells you this isn't right. That this isn't just a violent match anymore. It's something more consuming. The language of violence being told in this match far extends from just competition and into a definitive statement of dominance. An example of this is where Cash tells Dax to fucking murder him as he slides countless chairs into the ring near the finish. As the spots become more dangerous and risky for both teams, with Jay dropping Dax with a Jay driller onto the chain, and Cash pulling Mark into a pile of chairs outside. Every bit of you just wants it to end, to the point where, as an audience member, I don't care if FTR or the Briscoes are champions. I want them to be okay. The very livelihood of each man, more important than any title could award them. But no one will back down. That is the price paid for wanting to be the best. But then the finish happens, and it breaks my heart every time. I don't know what it's like to take a pile driver, I don't know what it's like to fall into a pile of chairs, but I know when someone I love is in danger. And in that moment, nothing matters but doing everything you can to help. And Cash is powerless to do that. The chain has been used in a variety of ways to hurt each man, but it's the way Cash is held back, clawing and scratching to save his best friend, unable to help Dax as he passes out to Jay Briscoe, that hurts the worst. In that moment, it's not about titles, it's not about fame or legacy or being the best. It's about saving your best friend. Because that's love. It's that kind of storytelling and dedication to one's art that put this match over for me. The Briscoes on this night were just more violent and more willing to go to that deeper level that FTR couldn't. This was their match, and their level of violence and perseverance is what a stipulation like this rewards. To definitively cement themselves as the best tag team on Earth. This match is audacious, bold, violent, and most of all, undeniable. And incredibly, given what build we were given for this match, it really shouldn't have. But the most incredible act this match commits to is it affirms the most deeply held ideology I hold about professional wrestling. Promos, segments, build, mean nothing. Nothing when compared to the sheer iron will and burning passion inside wrestlers when it all comes down to telling intense and emotional stories through physicality directly in the ring to make you believe in them. Some matches are given all the weight they need to feel important, others may take time to appreciate, and some break down the goddamn walls to declare its importance upon you. Professional wrestling is at its best when it can make you feel the deepest emotion possible to invest you in its stories. In this match, I felt every emotion. Because I don't watch professional wrestling, I feel it. From the bottom of my heart, thank you Dax Harwood, thank you Cash Wheeler, thank you Mark Briscoe, and most of all, thank you Jay Briscoe for letting me feel. Rest in peace, Jay. Reach for the sky. Thank you all so much for making it to the end of this video, and happy 2023! I apologize if this was a bit late, given how most people have probably already released their year in reviews, but I really wanted to take my time talking about these topics to flesh out the qualities of everything I talked about, as if I didn't love these forms of media as much as I did, I don't think I would have spent this much time and effort into talking about them. I hope following this, you found something worth checking out, and once again, let me know what your favorite things of 2022 were in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. Before I go, I just want to shout out some very special people who helped make this video and really put it over into something special to me. Thank you first to SamTheVAMod. Oh my god, it rules so much that I got to have him do the intro to this video, and even in the early stages of writing this, I always knew that I wanted him to be involved in some way, and I can't believe how fantastic that intro turned out. Can't wait until I get to work with him again in the future. Links to his socials in the description below. And of course, my lovely girlfriend, Puzzledorka. She drew the Secret Santo thumbnail that a lot of my fellow wrestling video essayists used in their Secret Santo videos, and she was more than eager to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog in the halfway point of the video. Links to her socials also in the description below. Thank you all so much. Take care of yourselves, and see you sometimes.